Bangladesh is on a growth momentum. We know that Bangladesh is very strategically located, and all indicators show that globally, Bangladesh is identified as one of the few countries to look out for the next 10 to 15 years. So that puts it in a very interesting context for Bangladesh. And we felt that the 10 years is going to be deciding factor for next 100 years how Bangladesh is going to shape up. And keeping that in mind, we basically took a few assumptions. First, Bangladesh has to grow through its 8 division. So far, even from our context, we felt that we have been focusing too much on Dhaka. So how do we drive the growth through 8 hub? That's number one. Number two, technology is going to play a huge role in the next phase of growth and development for Bangladesh. So how do we drive technology-centered innovation in 8 divisions, where women and youth particularly are going to lead that transformation. And that's where Bangladesh Innovation Conclave came in. And as we speak, we are actually working to set up 8 innovation centers in 8 division cities. Each of these centers are going to look at the next phase of economic growth in those regions, where technology again will play a huge role. So we are working with the business community, with policymakers, with academic institutions, and of course with youth to create those opportunities coming onto the ground. At the same time, which we feel are more critical, is we are trying to work with the larger community to create these different narratives of change. We know that the future is going to be very different. The importance is, are each of the components, each of the stakeholders are in agreement and aware of how these narratives are going to pan out. If we do not have that appreciation, we will not be ready for the future. And that's where the Innovation Center is going to work with parents, with teachers, with students, and with business houses to share that these are the different skill sets which would be needed for the future. So skills are going to be at the heart of this transformation. And we realize that we do not have enough skills in each of those regions. So the model that we are working on, how can we tap into the skill set of the people who are from that region, but right now maybe working in Dhaka or beyond the country. And that's where Innovation Conclave comes in. Because we want to tap into the skill set, knowledge, insight, and the vast resources, which is more from an intellectual point of view, which can transform these 8 regions. And thereby the theme for today's engagement, transforming Bangladesh through knowledge remittance. We want to discuss how can we bring back those knowledge today in a virtual platform or physically. And throughout all the discussions that will happen today, we would like to explore how can we make this happen? How can we take it on ground? So today, those who are present here, you will be playing a very, very important role by sharing your thoughts, your ideas, not just today sitting here, but also when you go out. We have got a virtual platform, we have got a Facebook page, and we will be continuing this dialogue with you on how can we bring back the knowledge and how can we change the 8 division. Because this is the time for Bangladesh, and it is us who have to do it. Because if we can't do it, then who will? And that's the thought which I would like to leave you today. So I hope that you have a very fruitful, engaging day. And thank you once again for coming here on a weekend, and for many it's a holiday time. So we truly appreciate your presence and support for this venture. Thank you.
Shuripai, thank you. My name Z is quite common among NRBs. People who come from abroad, they don't say Z, they say Z. Right? X, Y, Z. They will never say Z. They'll always say Z. But anyways, jokes apart. It's a bit cold here. I would like to let you know that today's summit, yeah, it is cold. Come on, Banlanding Tame, Lemeridian. I would like to let you know that the Leilong Summit is going to have 3 keynote speakers, and we are going to get 3 insight sessions. It's going to be quite packed actually, and 4 panel discussions on burning topics. So we already have some of our guests here, some more will be joining, some are on the way. If you're going to put a check-in on Facebook, you can try to put some hashtags. Can I see the hashtags on the screen, please? So the hashtags would be hashtag NRB Conclave, hashtag Knowledge Remittance, and hashtag Transforming Bangladesh. I repeat, hashtag Transforming Bangladesh, hashtag Knowledge Remittance, and hashtag NRB Conclave. You can see the hashtags on the, but not only the hashtags are important for this one, but also because we say that today's sessions are going to be, all these panel discussions and keynote speeches and everything are going to be more of an exchanging ideas and knowledge. So how are we going to pick up the questions from the audience? The best way is that you can put questions on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, or even comments or your inputs. And if you put a hashtag here, there is the social media team of Brand Forum is continuously scanning the social media, and they'll pick up the hashtags and they will bring those to me. Now, with much further ado, I'd like to invite today's first special note, and that will be from none other than Mr. Inam Ali, MBE, FIH, FRSA. Mr. Inam Ali is a Bangladeshi-born British businessman. You might have known him for the British Career Awards. He also runs a magazine, Spice Business Magazine, and IM TV, and he's also the president of British Bangladesh Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Inam Ali, please welcome on stage.
Thank you, Jed. I just said G, so it's okay.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for me to be here from all the way from London. So you see how hungry we are as the NRB. So good morning to all of you here this morning, and such a magnificent audience. NRB, whether it is correct in manners of many sense, need to be debated. Sometimes people call diaspora, sometimes people call me British Bangladeshi, sometimes call I'm British, sometimes I'll call Bangladeshi. So really where do I belong? That's my question remains to be answered. So there's a definition between my generation and new generation. Fourth generation now living in UK, which is those are the people our generation felt they are in heritage of the country of Bangladeshis. But when they go out and conversation with many business leaders, they always introduce themselves. My father or my mother come from Bangladesh, I'm from here. So that engagement is actually getting questionable by many sense. And I think Bangladesh has to do more work on that perspective, to engage them, to feel very proud. And that biological relationship of the idea, innovation, and the value, they have to be promoted. And doing this exercise, I have to share with you, although I've got not enough time to maybe go through in details, but let me go through 3C. 3C is going to be the future. The first C, perhaps, is commerce. We all know about commerce. Then you got communication. Then we're talking about communication and convenience. And out of these three continents, the convenience is really a key role in this world. If you look at how the convenience, maybe one word I can explain you, Uber. Uber is not going to be only taking people A to B, they're flying people A to B, here to the another part of the world. So Uber is a convenient product. So the knowledge is coming from some individual. And look, what had around the world is influencing the people, making it convenient for your journey, isn't it? Communication is another format which we all believe in. Twitter, Facebook generation, and those are the value we probably everybody enjoy. Then we have talking about commerce. Maybe I don't need to go to details. Look at Alibaba, how he making a global platform around the world, and look what he's doing. So you all know, I don't need to go to detail. So these three countries of the 3C, I believe how Bangladesh can be engaged. I personally believe there is a possibility of the new generation where our fourth generation, where knowledge transfer will be possible, providing those biological linkage has to be we promote, and perhaps they feel their value should be promoted in many sense. So my question is, how you feel as a businessman, businesswoman, and entrepreneur, that the people who are making a big statement around the globe, you've probably seen last week CNN as one of our British Bangladeshi boy, he was on the medical and science innovation. And made me feel so proud when I see him. There's a number of people questioning his innovation of AI, which is artificial intelligence of developing for his future. Made me feel very proud, but it wasn't mentioned about anything to do with Bangladesh. And that is, I feel, there's a missing part we have to work together with NRB coming from. And NRB has a real role to play. It is the high time, I think very high time, if we can engage with the new generation of their developments, their innovation, their many things is need to be bring them by, as I said, physical or by AI or other communication format. And the real challenge is for the next few years' time, if we see how we are facing around the world, is Bangladesh may be one of them, very high risk of the population. The population is, can we survive with physical labor and digital labor context, whether we can able to survive in the physical labor against the digital labor. And then physical labor and digital labor can be survived by the AI, by the artificial intelligence or other format of the intelligence which is developing around the world. And that is the question remains to be answered. And I think only way to, I think I give really big hand to Sharifai for such a right time to be at this convention in the morning, to sharing our thought, and NRB is many part of the world. I think they're here this morning. I think we can able to share your thought and our thought, able to get some kind of linkage from around the world, which we did try for last month. It was in Sylhet, NRB Global Convention, and you've probably seen maybe in the media, and try to engage in the people around the world. They feel that Bangladesh is not that bad. As my previous speaker said, the perception is much powerful rather than it's a reality. And I think Bangladesh needs to work, and we are very happy to work along with you. And perhaps my generation has a value, which is my new generation hasn't got that value. Because I feel to invest in Bangladesh or doing something in Bangladesh, it gives me added value in my heart. But in my children's generation, perhaps they will feel not. They will feel something missing out for their psychological or biological innovation. Maybe it's not there. For me, it's irrelevant. I invest in Bangladesh, not actually what I'm getting out of it. I'm making some kind of statement which is identical to my country where I was born. And it's very important for that feeling to transfer to the new generation. So I feel very proud to be here this morning. And of course, there's a new session maybe over the whole this morning to the afternoon. I'm very much happy to do the Q&A. Like to learn something from you, see whether I can take this message to my other event around the world, and maybe it will help you and assist you, and perhaps like to be part of you, perhaps like to be make this perception to be changed. Bangladesh is the economic growth is very high, very prosperous country, and we are very proud of the part of, very proud to be called Bangladeshis. And I think this is very important for your who are coming from different countries to come here and do a kind of gathering and sharing our thought and what that can be done. Again, thank you very much for your listening to me. I'm sure we will speak later on. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much. I'll take a small note from Enam's speech, Enam was saying the perception of Bangladesh. I mean, I have also been an NRP for a period of time, and I have seen the perception, but in the last 10 years, I personally think that I have seen the change in perception as well. I have seen, I mean, I am a graduate from IBA. Among the top three, among the first three who landed up a job, is today actually a counselor and an advisor, energy and supply chain advisor to the Prince of Saudi Arabia, my batchmate. And I have also seen NRBs, I mean Bangladeshis, who are heading, I think, transactional banking in HSBC out of Singapore. I have seen people leading Bangladesh in other countries as well. I think the Bangladesh perception, and thankfully you have mentioned that the perception is changing, but it has to be both ways now. That the NRBs also need to bring back whatever their knowledge and treasure they have to bring it back to the country as well, and that's where we are connecting. So setting that global perspective, in setting that global perspective, is coming up our next speaker, and that is Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui, CFA. I'll briefly introduce him first. Lutfi Siddiqui is the governing and visiting professor in practice at the London School of Economics. He's also the adjunct professor at National University of Singapore. In fact, he founded the faculty called Risk Management Institute. Until 2016, mid of 2016, Lutfi Siddiqui was the managing director and global head for emerging markets, for bonds and currencies at the Swiss bank UBS. He was reporting obviously directly to the highest governing body of the investment bank. He was also the member of the Group Sustainability Council, and he was at the member of the Investment Bank Innovation Board as well. Prior to that, he has also run business lines across Asia Pacific for UBS and Barclays as well. He's a member of the Bretton Woods Committee, LSE Investment Committee, Advisory Board of the System Risk, the Global Forum of Central Banks, which is OMFIF, and the Voting Academy for the Global Teacher Prizes. Mr. Siddiqui today is going to deliver his keynote speech on the global perspective. Let me welcome Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui on stage. Please put your hands together. You actually look much younger in person than what we can see in the screen. Tell me the secret.
I lost a bit of weight.
You don't say you lost a bit of weight. You see, I've slimmed down. Okay, while
This one is not working, so I need to go on.
this will work.
Hello, hello. 1, 2, 3, 4.
শোনা যায় আমাকে? আমি স্টেজে থাকলে কাউকে শোনা যায় না এমনিতেও। Okay, yeah, we will take him. But just before giving it to him, you remember the hashtags? Hashtag Innovate Conclave, hashtag Transforming Bangladesh, and hashtag Knowledge Remittance. While Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui is making his speech, you can throw any question to him with these hashtags, and we will bring them right after his speech. Thank you so much. Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui, the stage is yours.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Sorry, just getting the mic. Might also use this one. Hello, can you hear me on this mic? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so good morning everyone, and thank you very much for being here on an early Saturday morning. I thought that it's because it's an early Saturday morning, rather than come up with lots of charts and heavy-duty technical data, I'm going to make it very personal. So it's going to be more about my story, my perceptions, but hopefully much of it is representative of the broad observations that I make on this. I was I was here at this hotel not too long ago, in April actually, and I was here for just a day or two. Yesterday, when I went to breakfast upstairs, the gentleman at the restaurant recognized me, and he remembered that I like fresh guava juice without ice, and he brought it to me. And I thought it was incredible. Does he have an artificial intelligence database? Or he doesn't. It's all organic database. And he's only been in this job for a few months. Very young guy. And it's not just me. I watched him as he was walking down the restaurant, and he was talking to people. There was an Italian guest who gave him a hug as he left, and I thought, what amazing social intelligence and amazing customer service that this gentleman has. So really very impressed by that, and I occasionally encounter people like that when I deal with the Bangladesh civil service. There are times as an NRB when you're trying to communicate from abroad, you can really get stuck in the formal bureaucracy. And then you come across one or two people just like that, and they work beyond the call of duty, and they help you, and you remember that help. It's a kind of relationship building and a proactive effort to build contact and communication that I think is extremely important, and I see all over the world. I only had, I think, one encounter with the Indian ambassador a few years ago, and he put me on their database. So every month, I get an email which summarizes investments and trade flows and other highlights related to India. They clearly think that it's important that people like me get that email once a month. Similarly, I was on a panel with a director from the Japan Ministry of Trade not too long ago. Ever since then, he has constantly kept in touch. He likes to brainstorm ideas with me to see how the private sector might respond to this idea or that idea. 2 months ago, I wrote an article in one of the national newspapers in the UK, The Telegraph, as you would know. And I mentioned Singapore in that article. The Singapore High Commissioner in London read it, doesn't know me, looked me up, found my contact, and invited me over for dinner because she wanted to talk about some of the ideas that I had. And the Singapore Prime Minister's office, for a few years now, they never fail to invite me to contribute to their Future Trends publication that comes out once a year. I've had similar experiences with Indonesia. After I chaired a roundtable with the Indonesian finance minister. And actually at that same roundtable, we had the finance minister of Turkey. And I was reminded of that when I flew over on Turkish Airlines yesterday. And as many of you know, this was my first time on Turkish Airlines. I know many of you would have been on it. On board, in-flight magazine, in-flight brochures. It's full of data, statistics on trade, investments, but quite imaginatively, Turkish Airlines has an onboard online matchmaking service. They call it, what do they call it? They call it Invest on Board. Little video clips of startups in Turkey pitching their business. And if you're sitting there, you're a captive audience, you have to watch it. And maybe you'll take the dialogue forward. I thought it was pretty aggressive. So when I landed in Dhaka, I thought, let me compare it with the brochure that we have for our stuff. And I saw this big banner. It said, Investor Welcome Service, in bold letters. And it's the office of BIDA, the Investment Authority. So I walked over, and the office was closed. But there was a mobile phone number stuck on the door. If you need to speak to them, you can always call them. And directly opposite, there is this money exchange service, Jenny Money Market Exchange. And there were quite a few of these. And they were shouting out, hustling for business. Come here, check out our rates, change your money, we'll give you a good rate, good service, come to us. Very aggressive, high energy. And I thought, wow, this is the power of incentives and the power of competition. And it reminded me of a reception that I attended a few years ago. It was hosted by Arun Jaitley, the Indian finance minister. And it was to market investment opportunities in India. And you walked in, and it was an auditorium like this. And on two ends, so you have the finance minister of the federal government welcoming guests. And on two ends of the room, you have the chief minister of two different states. There was Andhra Pradesh, and I can't remember the other state. And each one of them was competing, saying, come to my state for your business, or you come to my state. They were like the money changer at Dhaka Airport in the way that they were hustling for business. One last example, Indonesia. Indonesia has really figured out how to inject this kind of business savvy when it comes to country branding. We were at the World Bank annual meeting in Washington, D.C. Last month, or the month before. And as you can imagine, full day of meetings, you're stuffy, you're inside, indoors, people drinking lots of coffee, many people jet-lagged. And in the middle of that, you encounter somebody in an Indonesian batik shirt, and they're holding a little cup with coconut water. And it's like the best thing in the world. They're not giving you a keychain, or a calendar, or a diary. They're giving you coconut water, which is the one thing you love at that point in time. And while you're sipping the coconut water, they're selling you the marketing story, and they're asking you for your details so that you can be on their database, and hopefully they can get the conversation going. And Indonesia is doing it because next year, the World Bank Annual Conference is in Bali. So they're very keen to make a good impression. Let me switch gears a little bit right now and talk about this thing which I know is talked about a lot in Bangladesh right now. We are in a state of dramatic disruption. The fourth industrial revolution is not just an ICT thing. This is about every aspect of our lives that will be fundamentally different, and it's changing right now. It's business, it's employment, it's trade, investment, education, governance, communication. I think there's no part of our life that will not be touched by the fourth industrial revolution. I know you're familiar with Sophie over here, but when I think of artificial intelligence, I think of AlphaZero. You know, AlphaZero is Google's chess program. It took AlphaZero 4 hours to teach itself the game of chess from the start to the end. At the end of 4 hours, it was able to beat the world champion in chess. Not just the world champion human, but the world champion computer until then. You know, the United Arab Emirates has the world's first minister for artificial intelligence. They have a cabinet minister specifically looking at the adoption of AI technology. They have initiated blockchain technology for government services, visa applications, license renewals, health records, property transactions. All of these will be on blockchain pretty soon. So you think about e-governance. E-governance is not just about putting your forms online. Because then I still have to download the forms, I still have to fill it out manually, then I still have to send it to somebody and hope and pray that someone is going to look at it, I have no way to track it after that. So that to me is not e-governance. You really need to be able to go a lot further for that. Because otherwise, unless you do that, there's really no point in one-stop service. What you need is a one-start service and transparency on how that service goes. Pretty much like a TripAdvisor. You know, when you book a hotel or you book a restaurant on that, you want to be able to give feedback on how the service went. Or like DHL or a courier service, you want to be able to track what's happening to your service. My file is over here today. Tomorrow it's going to be delivered there, and you should be able to track that in real time. So that is e-governance. Last night I sent an email to a friend of mine. His name is Omar Saeed. Omar is he's a scientist from MIT, and he has returned to Pakistan, and he's now chairman of the technology board of Punjab. It's a cabinet level position. And I asked him, what are you guys doing? Can you give me an example? And he sent me an email, arrived this morning, so I couldn't put it on the slide, but you should check it out. This is the Punjab Overseas Pakistani Commission website. And they have a real-time tracker service for their overseas Pakistani. And the first thing you see when you go there is feedback from the users, how they think the service was, how did they rate. Coming back to Dubai, so I'm sure some of you know that Dubai 3D printed an entire office building. So they used a 3D printer to print out a building using very few people, and it took 17 days to build it. And that is an aspect of the fourth industrial revolution that can be quite scary for countries that have manpower export. I don't like the term manpower export, but if you use that, if you think about exporting manpower, then 3D printing is a clear threat to that. There's a school kid in New York. Somebody told me about the school kid in New York. He designs iPhone covers. You know, your iPhones have these plastic covers at the back. He will ask you what you want in the design, he will design it. He's 12 years old, and he prints it using his 3D printer at home, and he sells it for $3 to his school friends. So this manufacturing business that used to be done in China, then in Vietnam, has now gone back to New York. And you see this in factories, in manufacturing. Philips shavers, electric shavers, or Adidas footwear in Germany. They've taken their factories back to the Netherlands, to Germany, in smart factories, automated factories. And these are apparently producing these goods at a much lower cost than people have done. So look, I don't want to spend too much time on the fourth industrial revolution. I co-authored a white paper on this, which can be found online if you're interested. There's also a wonderful World Bank publication called Trouble in the Making, which is also available online, and I would recommend that. But the reason I mention it for the NRB conclave, two reasons. One is, if you're planning for 2021, 2030, 2041, we have to be mindful of the speed of change that's happening behind us. And we have to be able to think in a scalable and non-linear manner. And the second reason is that in this world that I've just described, it's even more important that we have relationships and collaboration in the way that we operate, particularly cross-border collaboration, and particularly including diaspora. I would argue that we should be thinking about the way universities, Western universities, reach out to their alumni. Lots of you over here have been to universities in the West. If you think about the way Harvard has a very formal structure with which they reach out to their alumni, that is the mindset that we need. They look at alumni as assets, and therefore relationship management is asset management. I think there's a lot to be done there. And just at a basic level, if you want foreign investors to come to the country, it's the first question people would ask is, how much is your diaspora invested in this country? How much has that grown? It is a necessary condition when you have that dialogue about foreign investments. So before I go to what I think we should do, or a suggestion on what I think we should do for NRBs, I have two messages. One for my fellow NRBs and one for my fellow compatriots who are based in Bangladesh. So firstly for my fellow NRBs. First point to be very clear about is we are not special people. We can't expect, just because we live abroad, to come here and be treated differently or in a special manner. That might have happened 20 years ago. We need to really get off that horse right now and really think about what is our value add. We also can't be simply connectors of people. When we talk about knowledge remittance, it can't be knowledge that you can access on YouTube, because people here can access that themselves. So our job is to really think about what it is more than the obvious that we can offer, and that this knowledge remittance is a two-way remittance. It's not just us teaching them, it's them teaching us, and it's a two-way circulation of ideas that we should be going for. You know, I was recruiting a few years ago for the bank that I used to work for. I went recruiting in America to the business schools, and I met this gentleman who was doing an MBA, and he was a superintendent of police in India, and he got a scholarship to Boston, and he was doing his MBA. And very arrogantly, I asked one of my standard interview questions: have you ever worked in a high-stress environment? Because I worked in a dealing room, so you need to be able to deal with stress. So yeah, have you worked in a fast-paced, high-stress environment? He said, look, sir, I have never worked on a dealing room, but do you know what it's like to do riot control on the streets of India with 12 officers and 1,000 people coming straight at you? I was rightly quite humbled by that message, and I think there are many other examples where we have to be very humble in the way we interact with our compatriots over here. There are real areas where we can add value. The Chinese diaspora does a very good job of being cultural ambassadors. They're not translators in the sense of language, but they're bicultural. They're able to bridge the gap in terms of cultural understanding. I think we can help with that. I think we can help in helping Bangladesh avoid the mistakes that other countries have already made. We make the same mistakes in our stock market that other countries have made for years and years and years. I think we could have helped, and we can help in that area. We can help in beauty parades. When you go to pitch for business from investors, very good stories get lost because we can't pitch it correctly, and maybe we can help with that. And there is also the signaling issue that we can help with. I'm told that it's not just investment, even for aid. DFID in the UK or USAID in the US, they are going to increasingly ask, when you go to them for money, how much of your funds come from diaspora, and why is that not growing? There's a Commonwealth Summit coming up in London in February, and diaspora engagement is a part of that agenda. The second message is to people over here, my resident compatriots. I think we really need to go back to the basics and ask, do you really want to engage with NRBs? I think it's quite fair when people say, we've done very well, we're proud of what we've done, why should we do things differently? Why do we need to engage with you guys? And that's a perfectly reasonable position to take. I hope that's not the position you take, but it's important that your message is clear and consistent, especially for the second and third generation NRBs. Are NRBs not required Bangladeshis? No one says that anymore. It used to be an issue in the past. I just have to now remind people that the greatest NRB, most impactful NRB right now, any idea who that is? Is the ICT advisor to the Honorable Prime Minister. And he's clearly doing a very good job, so be careful what you say about NRBs. And that's where the solution is, and this is my last message, is what do we do going forward? How do we engage better? How do we engage more? And I think digital is the foundation of how we do better. We should take full advantage of the momentum and the progress that we've made in digital Bangladesh. So we need to create a platform, and we need to think of the platform as a bridge. Just like you think of Bodda Bridge, or any other infrastructure project, or fiber optics. This is infrastructure that we need to invest in. It's the kind of infrastructure that will help build the ecosystem that we need for innovation. I know that we have, I've been reading about Bangladeshi firms winning IT contracts with foreign governments, which is wonderful. I think it's $700 million worth of contracts that we have had in 2017, and the aspiration is $5 billion. And I really think that we can turbocharge the $5 billion goal through this NRB platform. You take the example of Korea. In the early 1990s, Korea was a good manufacturing country, but it was not seen as a country that had the potential for really high-value, global-level innovation. Today they do. There is another World Bank report that says that Korea, Taiwan, Japan, China, they've established very good sponsorship models, mentor and sponsors who interact with each other, which helps, again, with the circulation of innovative ideas. And I have a few relationships here in this country where I try and mentor them, and I learn from them, and we learn from them. And the ecosystem is a lot more rich as a result of that. So we need that platform, and that platform can be, it can be a LinkedIn style, it can be Facebook style, it can be a matrimonial matchmaking style. I don't want to specify the design of that website, but maybe why not have the brand forum could have a competition. Let's have a hackathon, an app competition, and really come up with the best design for that platform. And I would also suggest that we create a sandbox. Some of you would be familiar with the sandbox. The UK has one, Singapore, Australia. And the sandbox is the ability, you go to technology startups and you say to them, why don't you deliberately disrupt some of the processes that we currently have through new technology? And I think we can do that. In some countries, diaspora bonds are administered not by the government, but by outsourced third parties. I can give you a personal example. I have a few bonds that the Bangladesh Bank has issued, and the bank that I initially used at the time, they no longer want to do personal banking in Bangladesh, so I need to change the agent bank from bank A to bank B. We should be able to do that with a click on a platform, on a website. I'm trying to do it offline. It's been many months, and I still have failed to get that done. So that's the sandbox that I would suggest. We should be able to clear our bottlenecks. We should allow scaling, and then most importantly, we should be able to have a tracking mechanism so that you know how we're doing. What are the key indicators? Can we improve in real time based on the experience that people have had? My last point is that it is not just about technology. Technology is the minimum.
that we need to do. But a platform needs shared values and a shared vision and a shared narrative of where it is that we want to go with the platform. Why is it that we want to go there? And what are the rules with which we will interact with each other? Otherwise, we are hugely talented when it comes to getting into fights with each other. When it comes to fights about form and not substance. So I really think it'd be great to have a set of rules, set of values, standards of professionalism that we all agree to. Maybe we take an oath once a year to say this is what we will do. And it's really the values, the shared vision and the shared narrative that will transform the platform into a community. And that is ultimately what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a community between NRBs and resident Bangladeshis into one single community. So that's all that I wanted to say. I hope there will be questions, and I'll be happy to interact further. There is there's Tom Friedman, many of you would know, a New York Times columnist, author, and there's a phrase that he has used in one of his early books that I really like, and it says, "Do you have more dreams than memories, or more memories than dreams?" And you can look at every country in the world and ask this question. And those countries that are stuck with too many memories and not enough dreams get stuck in the past. And you have those countries who have memories and they value and cherish their memories, but they just have so many dreams that they're creating new memories at a record pace. So let's do that. Let's get together. Let's create new memories. Let's get together to design and build our new digital diaspora community. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Should we do questions now, or how would you like to do it?
Mr. Rufi, thank you so much. That was quite insightful. As you were speaking, I was going through this Punjab thing. It's quite interesting, actually. I loved it.
Did you get a chance to take a look?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, you might another big round of applause for Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui. But before you leave, I was just going through the questions that came up. So I think one particular issue was with regard to the trust factor. And this is quite...
Not me. Maybe it was me. Sorry,
okay.
It was me.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. So I think a major issue is the trust factor. NRBs living abroad, I mean, you have been into Switzerland, so I'm not cracking any jokes with him in future. But anyways, I have been in a Swiss company as well, Holcim. But you see, the way we have seen in Switzerland, I mean, I personally missed a train for 7 seconds of delay. And I can imagine how things work. But when you come to Bangladesh, there is this trust factor. Are people going to deliver? Are the deliveries going to be consistent? If I'm sharing an idea, will this idea be at all really going to get materialized? And these things come up.
This is a hugely important point. There's two types of trust. One is, do I trust your intentions? Are you going to do what you said you're going to do? And the other is, do I trust your capability? I don't care what your intentions are. If you can't deliver because you don't have the capability to deliver, then you can't expect to score points because I tried my best. That's not professionalism. And we need trust of both kinds. We need the intention to deliver and the capability to deliver. And this is the most important thing. If the future of economic progress is connectivity, and it's how we use networks and platforms and relationships, I'm standing here saying I'm happy to open up my relationships to all of you, but only if I'm confident that you can deliver into those relationships. Otherwise, you will destroy my relationships forever. And that's my strongest asset that I need to be able to deliver. Now, it is easier to build trust over time. So you can't just say, trust me. You've got to say, trust me with the little things, and let's build trust iteratively over time. And it's easier to do that when you have a feedback mechanism. And technology can help us with that. If you track how you have actually delivered, if you have a tracking mechanism to say, you know, I got that done in 24 hours. I responded to that email in 8 hours. This thing that, you know, used to take 3 months, I got it done in 2 weeks. And if you have that data, and if you are transparent, and you publish that data, then you build trust through facts. And that is why I think the platform mindset is an important one.
Thank you. The other issue, obviously, I also had a question, and the hashtag questions also covered it up. If I may sum it up, I mean, the issue is about investment versus the political climate, or, I mean, for example, the questions came up like, do you think the trade and investment policies of Bangladesh are favorable for NRB investments? Or do you think the politics is going to help us in growing the investment or not? How do you think the knowledge investment will be seen by the government and things like that? So I'll just sum it up as an investment versus the political climate. And what's your comments on that?
I would sum it up as policy versus execution. At the level of the policy, I see very little difference in the successive governments that we have had, especially compared to other countries where the political parties have very different orientation when it comes to investment, capitalism, markets, and so on. So at the level of policy, there is continuity and there is consistency. Certainly at the moment, the policy environment is extremely conducive to what we are trying to do. Digital, infrastructure, all of the things that you think of, the policy is very much consistent with that. The problem is execution. On the day-to-day level, is my experience consistent with policy? And there, I find huge variation. If you're lucky and you encounter the right person, you have a great experience.
If I may add to that, my personal take on policy is that forget about policies. Seriously, I mean, Latif Bhai was talking about the fourth industrial revolution. If you look at every single industrial revolution that has happened, it's always the business and economy, it's the private sector who has always taken the lead, and the politics only followed. So you really don't need to think about policies too much. I mean, the basic frameworks are there, and you just need to go, and as he says, you just need to show the execution, right? Thank you so much. So with that, is there any other questions from the audience? Yes, can I have a mic to the big gentleman there?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of a better person to ask this question to, questions to Mr. Siddiqui. I have had experience of working at a multinational bank for 5 years, worked at their head office in London as well. What I've seen in the financial industry among Bangladeshis, there are quite a few successful Bangladeshis working in the financial industry. But when I see the examples of my colleagues or ex-colleagues who are Chinese or Indian, they almost feel a responsibility to reach out to their compatriots in their local offices, to reach out with opportunities so that they can sort of lift them or take them to the bigger opportunities in the foreign countries. So for example, we have very few people in investment banking or M&A or infrastructure finance, but we do have Bangladeshis there. So when opportunities come up, they don't really reach out to local offices for talent. They almost have this fear that what if they don't deliver? But it's very different for people that I've seen from India or from China. And I think this is creating a massive sort of a glass ceiling or massive sort of a barrier. This fear, this almost reluctance to help out or to reach out. And for young people like me, this has been a tremendous issue because every time I have reached out to them, all I have gotten is ignorance. I share your very personal experience, and since you're from the financial industry, I would like you to share some light on it. Thank you.
Well, that's good feedback to know.
Very good feedback. I myself have also seen it, but your response?
It's good feedback. I think it needs to be to be looked at. I wasn't aware of there being this difference.
Yes, a lady. এখানে একটা mic লাগবে. And this is going to be the last question of this session.
Thank you. I'm Mahir Maman. I'm from Brack University. I would like to ask you your perspective on the education system that we have and how should the business schools prepare their students, because it's been private and public. So you being a business teacher, how do you see Bangladesh youth and what is the role of us as a teacher? So your perspective on us being business teachers.
Sure. I think the sector of education is under disruption in the same way as any other industry. If you think of education as the industry, it's also changing. The first change is that giving education is no longer about sharing knowledge that can be found online or in the book. People are doing online courses to be able to do that. The purpose of education is to be able to stimulate critical analysis, in curiosity,
Absolutely.
so that they're able to look for what's not obvious, to be able to have an argument in a constructive manner. Right now what you get is, you either have an argument which is very destructive, it gets personal very quickly, or we just stay away from the topic that we don't want to have an argument on. But how to have a constructive debate is a skill that we need to be able to impart. More generally, what it means to be a profession, to be professional, the soft skills, those I think are what need to be imparted. I think purely by the laws of statistics, we have so many people in this country. Statistically, we've got to be able to have, we've got to be able to produce some of the best students in the world. In the same way that I used to say, 12 years ago at an NRB conference, I said that we've got to be able to produce a cricket team that can beat New Zealand. The population of New Zealand is smaller than Dhanmondi in Dhaka. So statistically, we've got to be able to do that. It's a matter of finding and training and taking feedback, making changes and all of that. And let's remember that metaphor, and I think in every sector, including in education, we should be able to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. One round of applause to Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui. আমরা মনে হয় ছোট একটা ফুলের তোলা দিব নাকি দিব দস্তগীর ছোট মোমেন্টে দিতে হবে আমাকে
We can do that later. We can let.
No, I think may I invite Mahmood Hussain, Managing Director of NRB Bank, to please come and on behalf of Brand Forum and all of us, maybe hand over a small token of appreciation to Mr. Lutfi Siddiqui, a financial institution guy with a financial institution guy. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the honor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lutfi. So with that, we conclude the first session. Remember, hashtag transforming Bangladesh, hashtag knowledge remittance, and hashtag NRB Conclave as you are here. After this, we are going to go into a 10 minutes tea break, which is going to last for 20 minutes. So I will welcome you back. While in the tea session you are, Brand Forum, in association with Master Pierre and everyone, they have also taken a small interview session where you can participate. There is a live, sorry, not live, right? It's a recorded interview. You will see the camera and everything there. You can give whatever inputs you want to on the video as well. Thank you so much. See you after the tea. Yeah, I say 10 minutes tea break, but it will take